Hello everyone, this is Oliver from Neo, and today we are going to talk about two different kinds of green tea, two unshaded green tea from the same prefecture of Japan. So they're both from the prefecture of Shizuoka, one of the biggest tea regions, or the biggest tea region in Japan. People say that around 50% of all the green tea produced in Japan is coming nowadays from Shizuoka. So this is an area where the majority of the senchas which you enjoy in around the world are actually coming from the region of Shizuoka. So when we dive now into these two different types of teas, is that I wanted to take two teas which are fairly similar, coming from the same region, coming from the same cultivar, so same tea plant breed, the Yabukita, which is the most common also and the most spread cultivar in whole Japan. Around 75 to 80% of the whole Yabukita plant or of the whole production of green tea in Japan is coming from the Yabukita cultivar. So here we have two farmers. So we have on the one hand side we have Hagiricha, which is a commune of different farmers put together, and they produce together their own tea. And on the other hand we have Mr. Masuda, which is producing also different varieties and different kinds of teas, and one of these on the organic side is the Sencha Yuri. Both of them nearly planted at the same level. Here we talk about, so with the Yabukita of Mr. Masuda, we talk about 500 meters above sea level. Meanwhile, the Hagiricha is around 450 meters above sea level. And what is also interesting about both of the teas, they're both non-shaded teas. So none of them are before the harvest shaded. Shading often serves the tea plants, especially in exposed fields to the sun, to keep the sweetness of the plant alive, inhibiting the transformation from the theanine, which is an amino acid, into a catechin. And the catechin often gives them more of the bitter tones, a little bit more of this tanninic, a little bit drier flavor. So this is something which often in the south also, or in the early days in the south, was practiced a lot, but now also moving a little bit up more and more to the north, where shading is also practiced more and more, due to the fact that the tea becomes sweeter. But here we have, in both cases, non-shaded tea. But anyhow, these two teas, thanks to how they are very sweet and smooth, but still show a little bit of this tanninic flavor. And I want to see what is actually the difference between the tea and how does it show itself in the flavor profile of these two tea. So for this I brought twice the same kyusu. So we have a black tokoname kyusu, which we are using for this tasting, taking the Sencha Yuri in the right, and the Mafuchi Sencha on the left, and taking also the same amount of water for both of them. I made water at 60 degrees Celsius. It's my favorite temperature with senchas. Often in Japan people say you can go up to 80 degrees Celsius. My personal preference is 60 degrees, due to the fact that you have much more of also a taste exploration in the mouth, as the little bit lower temperature of the water lets your palate to enjoy a little bit more, a broader spectrum, while 80 degrees for my palate is a little bit too hot. But this is very personal. You can definitely go up to 80 degrees if you would like to. Then we're gonna leave the tea in for 1 minute exactly, and after the minute we will see how these two teas actually taste like. Good, so we're through with this, with the brewing of this tea. So first the Mafuchi, and second we pour in the Yuri. Good. So, already in terms of colors, what we can see is that um, the Sencha Hagiricha seems to be a little bit stronger in kind of the brighter yellow notes, a little bit more golden in the terms of liquor, while the Sencha Yuri is a little bit greener, is a little bit stronger in its greenness, but there's a slight color difference. So you can see that both teas are very close to each other. And let's have a comparison of the tea leaves, just already the smell. Good. So first the Sencha Yuri. I have a lot of sweet corn. I have a creaminess, a little bit of a buttery note, so butternut note. And it seems there's a slight citrusy note, a little bit of a freshness to it. But pretty strong in this creamy, a little bit butternut note. Okay, this is Sencha Yuri. Now let's go into the Hagiricha. Oh wow. So this has a strong flavor of sweet corn, definitely. Nearly has a little bit of a marine breeze. It's very interesting, but still quite green. Yeah, and the sweet corn and the slight butternut or slight nutty note, but very soft. So now let's dive into the taste of these two teas. Sencha Yuri on this hand. So very nice, sweet note, a little bit of a drier note as well, but I have a lot of fruitiness in the beginning. Mm-hmm. A little bit of papaya note, but then what it is a little bit different when you compare it also to a more shaded tea is you have a little bit of this kind of a fruitiness, but turning then more into a little bit more of a drier and a little bit more of a tannic note of the tea. So this is really a specificity after of the more unshaded tea. You have a little bit of more of the tannic, of the tannins showing themselves, of the a little bit bitter and dry tones of the tea. This is something I realized also a little bit more in the prefecture of Shizuoka, being more present, a little bit this more citrusy, but kind of a little bit of a dry citrusy note. But definitely in the beginning you have a nice fruitiness, and then it turns over into a little bit more of kind of a more dry and a little bit citrusy flavor profile. But let's go into the Mafuchi. Here the Mafuchi is showing itself from much softer side, so it's finer, it's smoother, it's a little bit more floral. It's not as strong and not as strong developed in terms of taste. So it kind of had also a little bit of longer needles. It was a little bit tighter rolled. It seems to give a certain softness to the tea taste. And being in the beginning especially very smooth and a very fine tea, and now developing also a little bit of this slight dryness, but much less as the Sencha Yuri, for example. Here with the Sencha Yuri you have much more kind of this quick turn into a little bit more of this drier, a little bit more of the citrusy note, while you have a lot of floral notes, a lot of sweetness still swinging with the taste of the Sencha Mafuchi. Here, much more on the smoother and the more delicate side. It's not as strong also in the development of the taste profile. So it seems that kind of a little bit this lower elevation, even if it's only slight, and a little bit of a different location, gives this tea a slight smoother, a little bit more of a floral, and a little bit more of kind of a more delicate note. Meanwhile, the Sencha Yudi is quite straight in the sweet tones and then turning more into this drier note. And the Sencha Yudi now in comparison definitely has a slighter, more astringent note, so you have much more of the citrusy, a little bit more astringent notes. Meanwhile, with the Mafuji, is clearly smoother in terms of this fine, delicate, a little bit flowery, sweet note, and only shows in the end a little bit of kind of this a little bit dry, slight citrusy note. So this is definitely the main difference of these two teas. So finally, what we can say is, even though they're very similar, with the same steaming method, with the same non-shading method, from the same cultivar, already there, just coming from a different farmer, from a slight different location, and the tea can show itself in a very different way, but still they're pretty close to each other in terms of this a little bit slight dryness of the taste profile, which is coming from the unshaded tea, or being unshaded. But definitely with the Masuda we have a little bit more of a sweet, but then turning more into a astringent tone tea. On the other hand, we have the Mafuchi, it's a very sweet and florally taste, and then only with a slight hint of this more dry flavor profile. Yeah, so this is it. This is these two teas. So I hope you like this tasting, and if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. I'll be happy to answer them, and I'll see you tomorrow.